INSA stops someone buying? Suppose tomorrow you take leave from as a nautical advisor and buy a ship tomorrow. How INSA will stop you in buying the vessel? It will not stop you.
So, may I react?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, maybe INSA, others may think that it's a closed door, but within the INSA Secretariat, let me share some of the experiences that I had in the last 2 to 3 years. The tonnage tax, when it was introduced, I got so many queries from foreign ship owners. There was a shipping Canadian alliance. They are ship owners from Canada wanting to move to India. From Germany there were inquiries. But in the last 2 to 3 years, I have found that except for foreign broking firms or manning firms, none of the shipping companies have ever thought of registering ships here. Why? Take an example of Maersk, which they have been saying that once the tonnage tax is introduced, we will flag some of our ships in India. Today Maersk is carrying most of the containers, Indian containers, but they have never thought of registering one ship in India. i-maritime, they are operating out of Hong Kong. They are looking for Indian cargo, but they are still not coming to India. The reason is, what any shipping company worldwide looks at is the cargo and a tax friendly regime. Today India is still not offering a tax friendly regime. India is offering cargo. People are happy sitting in, say, any Panama, Liberia, Singapore, Hong Kong. They are better off than being in India, and they are still able to come and carry Indian cargo. So why should they come to India? So opening a second registry per se, we have absolutely no objection. But what are we going to achieve? Within INSA, we feel that if a second registry is set up here, the only thing that may happen, that within the Indian tonnage, there will be 2 types of tonnage. So the Indian ship owners, for example, Great Eastern, half of its tonnage would remain in the domestic registry, half of them will be moving to the international registry. So there will be only division.
It's already happened.
Yeah, this is the only that may happen. Unless and until we give both the things and strengthen our domestic registry, I don't think so. India can look forward of attracting foreign ship owners into the country.
Mr. Kulkarni, another interesting thing which is happening lately is that the shipping business itself is getting transformed. Shipping companies worldwide are getting into port terminals, they are getting into logistics, getting into a different, and that's where the private equity or the venture capitalists, because they don't like the cyclicity of the business, and even capital markets, listed companies are not very comfortable with that. So tomorrow, if there is a port company which is getting, so don't you think that INSA should also broaden in terms of the framework, in terms of looking at a larger maritime, I think we have debated this earlier also between us, but to share this with the people who are here, because that makes a more robust business and it gives a much stable earnings and growth. What happens in shipping, as many of us are aware, that when the peaks are there, we grow very rapidly. The profits can become double, triple, 3 times in a. I mean, you can see a 63% CAGR means what in 3 years? I mean, it'll be a big number. So, but in the lean times it goes down, and a lot of companies are looking at getting into a larger logistics chain. So we need to, and again from a government perspective, we were looking at maritime sector, the maritime regulation, as a whole, looking at a sort of a regulatory framework which builds a complete thing on the logistics side, the sea logistics. But are there any attempts towards that? And maybe I would request some of the private equity people also that how do you see these regulations? How critical, probably Matthews, how critical are regulations to a growth of a sector? If you could share some light on that, your experience worldwide.
Which I honestly don't have much of it. We just started to look at.
No, but in other sectors.
But having said that, I think clearly one of the challenges when you look at pure shipping companies, it's the cyclical nature of the business. You really turn away from the shipping companies when they're really expanding, right? Because typically when the assets are being put on, that's not the time when private equity would like to enter. Private equity would like, because we'd like to buy at the bottom of the cycle. So that's the reason why a lot of the investments that have gone into shipping assets is not in terms of creating new capacity. It is in terms of probably buying out assets, existing assets, when they are at the bottom. But I think the real interest would come from more stable cash flow type businesses, which is logistics. If we are looking at CFS terminals, all of that. So I think the infrastructure and the logistics, which is stable cash flow, is what is.
Interestingly, like there was recently there's an international client of us who wanted us to explore the possibility of hiring shipping companies for a 25-year contract. They were looking at they're setting up a power plant and they're looking to have a 4 million ton of coal supply on for next 25 years. The power plant requires that amount of coal on an absolutely regular basis. Now that means in fact KC Maritime is a pioneer in these kind of large contracts where you can get into long-term contracts which are stable revenue and with international participation with some probably formula whereby things can be indexed also. So and there are companies like Shipping Corporation of India is looking at joint ventures with several companies. HPCL they are looking at some of the shippers because last few years they have paid a huge amount of money in terms of shipping costs. So they are looking at buying ships, keeping them in their fleet or maybe getting into a joint venture. So which brings down this cyclicity of the business and that makes things more stable. But Insa, what's your view on the same?
So I feel that expanding into other than the core activity of operations of ships, I think it more or less depends upon the business strategy of each company. We haven't per se looked into that area, but if you find this is some kind of again a cycle, that people wanting to take on the job of somebody else doing it. For example, some years back the oil majors went into transportation, burned their fingers, and again they said no, shipping we should not touch. So I think this is sometimes more often it is a hype also. I feel that people first talk of consolidation, bringing under their arm entire gamut of all their activities, and then after realizing that they don't have the expertise, then again they said no, we want to remain in our core sector of refining oil and not entering into shipping. So I think today we are talking of 5PL and all that. I think perhaps sometimes I feel that we are taking too long a jump. I am sounding a bit pessimistic here, but this is a purely a business decision of any company.
I think it's what you said just now. If say INSA, while giving its own plan to the government, can convince the government that INSA, in the growth of the country, would participate in these long-term contracts or joint ventures or SPVs or whatever you would like to call it, I think then government perhaps would get more comfort that yes, these companies have a stake. Otherwise, most of the INSA vessels, on one hand we are talking that we are carrying very small percentage of Indian cargo. On the other hand, and hence we should grow. But if you look at the INSA's profile, most of the ships on the cross trades, they are hardly carrying Indian cargo. So then what are we talking about? We can't keep on putting our ships on the cross trade and keep saying that we should have more ships, Indian ships carrying Indian cargo. So we have to then convince to the government and say that look, it is in your long-term plan for security of these projects that we are major stakeholders, and let us go together and we give our commitment to be participating partners, and then the flagging out will not take place because then the long-term binding will also be there, and I'm sure the government will certainly take it more positively.
Yeah, because a lot of joint ventures are possible in shipping where there could be a foreign shipper because a lot of foreign companies are coming and locating power plants, steel plants, and they may like to control. POSCO, for example, may like to control the shipping, import of iron ore and export, and we have been interacting with a lot of these large industrial groups, and they would like at least 50 to 60% of their material movement requirement to be tied up and structured. And in fact, I happened to meet Ellen Mitchell's group head for shipping, and they said they have a large shipping division of around I think 12 or 15 Panamaxes, because it helps them in negotiating very well with the rest. The total material requirement is huge. Now SCI is looking at doing a joint venture with Mitchell's to form. And I mean, will these be the kind of areas which would be acceptable to private equity? I mean, as coming in. Maybe some of the private equity people, Chris Capital, probably you could share your views. I mean, are these kind of deals which attract you in terms of the joint ventures between shipping majors and the shippers and trying to move part of the cargo on a dedicated basis?